Okay, folks, we're exiting the theater. We have just seen Rocky 5, and just seen Rocky 5, and about to get some privacy here so I can report with this special analysis of Rocky 5. What did I think? Well, I think Rocky 5 ages well. I think it's one of those Rockies. Look at that nice theater, folks. The theater experience. Nice cushy seat. A grand total of 3 people, including myself in the theater. I'm trying to remember where I parked, folks, so I can get us all to privacy. But Rocky 5, obviously, first I gotta say, it's sad that both Sage Stallone and Tommy Morrison are no longer with us. 2 of the stars of Rocky 5. So that's the first thing that comes to mind, because those 2 actors were involved in kind of this Rocky father figure love triangle in this movie of who does Rocky care for the most? His own son, Rocky Jr., played by Sage Stallone, or the would-be heir apparent Tommy Gunn, played by Tommy Morrison. So that's kind of the subtext, or actually maybe it's just the whole thing. On top of Rocky losing his fortune because of Paulie signing over power of attorney when Rocky was in Russia and so forth. I'm giving away spoilers in case you haven't seen this movie. Is Rocky 5 worth seeing? I think so. I think Rocky 5 has kind of gotten a lot of shit over the years from Rocky pundits. People just kind of demoted it. I think there's a few reasons for that, which I'm about to get into. Just trying to get away from, trying to get my privacy with you, my viewer here. Oh, that's so nice. I think part of the problem is that this movie it was filmed or released, or both, 5 years after Rocky 4, which is the Ivan Drago one. So there's this gap, and they try to make you feel like the movie came out like 2 years after or something, or they go right from Rocky. I mean, first of all, you have this weird kind of nude scene of Rocky in the goddamn shower, like he's in that movie of Basic Instinct with Sharon Stone, that movie they did together, Assassins or whatever. And then Rocky, really bad makeup job of Rocky kind of coalescing in what was supposed to be the dressing room. And he's got, interestingly, there's Duke there, and then Duke never shows up in the movie later on. And we're talking about Duke that was with Apollo. So Duke has like this little 1-minute cameo, but Duke never shows up in Rocky's life. The timing of the Rocky movies was always kind of fucked up, because it's like in Rocky world, everything is happening subsequentially, if that's the word, subsequentially. Basically, like everything's happening right after each other in the Rocky universe, right? Rocky world, Rocky land. But in reality, 2.5, 3, in this case from 4 to 5 years are passing. So it really doesn't make much sense. By the way, Mike Messier's shirt, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Find that on Amazon, Mike Messier. I'm just I'm a little lost for words. I know I'm not being very quick with my words on this one, folks, so please bear with me. But it just, I feel like that 5-year gap between the release of Rocky 4 and Rocky 5 was much longer than we were used to. And the fact that they put a lot of Rocky IV stuff in this movie, there was no Mr. T in the flashbacks when Rocky's having flashbacks to prior fights. It's all Dolph Lundgren and it's all fucking Ivan Drago. You don't see flashbacks really of him suffering through Apollo Creed beatings or Clubber Lang beatings. And so the feeling, folks, is that this movie felt like he wanted to be released in like 1987 or 88. Like, it seems like maybe the Rambo franchise took over Stallone's life for a while. Or the other kind of glaring issue is that if you watch Rocky IV and his son, Rocky Jr., is watching TV, he's like, what, 6 or 7 or 8 at the most, or 9? And then when we get to these movies, he's like 13 or 12 or 13 or 14 maybe. So it's a different actor and so forth. But did the kid grow overnight on New Year's Eve, 1985? And so there's a lot of things in this. And it really does feel like the movie feels like it takes place in 1988 or 1989. It's a little grittier. A lot of rap music in this movie. It's not the best rap music. I mean, it's okay, but they didn't have like fucking Chuck D and Public Enemy do the soundtrack. It just feels like generic kind of knockoff rap music that they got somewhere. So the point of the effing fucking matter is this. Rocky V kind of wins despite itself, because there is a difference here in the storytelling. It's not necessarily about a guy overcoming his own fears or his own insecurities. It's about a guy kind of ignoring his son, the cat's in the cradle, to find his other son. You know, this Tommy Morrison guy who's an unappreciative fuck and who gets polluted by this great character. Obviously, George Washington fucking whatever the fuck. George Washington Duke, which is interesting that the promoter's named George Washington Duke and the real fighter was Tommy the Duke Morrison. Interesting. But George Washington Duke, clearly, as everybody knows, a parody of Don King, the actual real-life boxing promoter, and so on and so forth. The actor who plays this George Washington Duke guy, I don't think we've ever seen him in everything. I mean, at least, hey, man, maybe he was in the fucking Inkwell or something, or maybe he was in Candyman or fucking whatever the fuck, but I can't remember him for anything else. He's good. He's a good actor, and he really does this role justice. Other thoughts, Delia Shepard, who was kind of like an 80s B movie star, meaning Skinamax type person, is in this movie as kind of the girlfriend or the whore of Tommy Gunn. Tommy Gunn. The other thing, folks, real interesting, this Adrian character, because I really feel kind of conflicted about Adrian. This is her last movie in the series. Spoilers. She won't be with us for Rocky Balboa, which is tomorrow night. But she kind of gets reduced to these like yelling roles, like these every movie from like maybe 4 on or maybe even 3 on. Adrian's big moment is to yell at Rocky that he's got to give it up. You've got a family. It's not the money. It's you. So Adrian just kind of gets degraded into this shrill of a yelling wife that, you know, she's not in it for the money, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, the brain damage. And Rocky doesn't want to do commercials. So it's interesting. I do like Rocky V. I did like this movie coming out, enjoying it more than I thought I would. There's some good moments, really. It's almost melancholy, folks, because of the fact that we've lost, I mean, not like you and I, but I mean, the world has lost Sage Stallone and fucking Tommy Morrison here. So it's kind of sad to see these, you know, people in the prime of their youth 30 years ago or whatever, and now they're no longer here. So it's a little depressing, to be honest. Makes you feel fucking old. But Stallone's still with us, man. He's still rocking and rolling. And there you fucking have it. As far as the Paulie character, Paulie, very interestingly enough, lost a ton of weight between, I guess, Rocky 1 and 2 magically. And he's kind of bulked up a little bit again. And Paulie typically fucks things up and messes things up. But he's a great character. This movie, once again, if you watch my analysis of Rocky 4 and the whole fuckamathuckada of these Rocky opponents and their thing, where the Rocky opponents win a big fight, then lose a big fight at the end. Once again, Tommy Morrison, about 2/3 through this movie, if not 3/4, wins the title from Union Kane, and then gets his ass handed to him in a street fight with Rocky. Now, I could be wrong, but was it Union Cade's son that fought Creed, and Creed won? Did they bring back like a Union Cade reference somehow? Was that Union Cade's son or some such thing? Or am I just making shit up in my own fucking head? So how do I feel about Rocky V? I'm glad I went to see it. I feel a little bit better. I think I enjoy this one more than Rocky IV, just because I had lower expectations tonight. I think Sage Stallone did a great job, and I read up on his IMDb page, and the young man passed away at the age of 36 in 2012. It seemed like he had a great life ahead of him, and he passed away far too young from complications of some type of situation, disease of some kind that I'm not familiar with, so I feel bad. He had won some film awards himself, Boston Film Award and other awards, and went to college in North Carolina, apparently, so it seemed like he was off and running, and it's just kind of like this movie, if nothing else, stands as a testimony to him and his real-life father, but it's kind of depressing when you think about it, but I mean, it's depressing, but it's not, I guess, if that makes any sense. We all have limited time, folks. Watching these movies, we're looking at movies from the 70s, the 80s, 1990, 2006. That's 4 decades. And this is 2020. So they haven't even had a new movie in 14 years. Now I'm talking strictly about the Rocky set, not Creed. So don't fucking hashtag me about Creed, because I know Creed is doing well, but Creed is not part of this re-release series. It's interesting because it feels like at times with these Rocky movies, they don't really know when to quit. Like they don't know when, or Stallone doesn't. Like, when do I stop making Rocky movies? So he just doesn't. He just keeps making them. But I do feel like one thing, that this movie was different, but could it have been more different? I think what would have helped this movie stand out a little bit more on its own 2 feet is, quite simply, take out the Drago stuff. Like, if they really just didn't have the Ivan Drago, flashback at the beginning of the movie, because that was played out by the time we saw this thing in 1990. If they didn't do that, then we probably would have received this more as like an art house character study movie version of Rocky. But because they had to fucking put Drago flashbacks and so forth, which really made very little sense, and they probably could have, just try to get away from Rocky IV for Rocky V. Like, just make it a couple of years later. Don't try to sew it all together like a tapestry. But maybe they just didn't think about that at the time, or maybe it was too late. They already started doing it, recognized it wasn't working, but kept on going. So it's a lesson in filmmaking. If you're going to go out, and I really do hate this goddamn expression, a universe, a Marvel universe, a DC universe, fuck your universe, make a goddamn film, okay? But if you're going to do that, make a universe. If you're going to be pretentious enough to go out and do that and think that people are going to be interested and hang with you, then watch these Rocky movies. They are available on DVD and other streaming methods, I'm sure, and learn, how do you arc a character? How do you bring this character, Rocky, from the 70s? But I think what could have fucked it up a little bit is the music, the compositions in, say, Rocky 1 and 2, and even for my sensibilities, of Rocky 3, the Survivor, Eye of the Tiger, his brother, Frank Stallone, that music holds up. And it's not against rap music, but the rap music they used for Rocky V was not that good. It just, no offense to any of the artists out there, hey, that's my music, but I'm just telling you, it wasn't Chuck D, it wasn't Ice-T, it wasn't the Digital Underground. It was some knockoff bullshit. So it just wasn't as good. MikeMessier.com, the Mike Messier movie reviews playlist, my own original films you are more than happy to watch. Messier Mantra, Messier Peace Theater, just subscribe and like everything I do. Mike Messier.